The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Maynard Bangs presiding. All rise for the Honorable Judge Bangs.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus The Family Man, a 2000 comedy starring Nicolas Cage as a high-powered executive who wakes up Christmas morning to receive a magical glimpse into the humble but happy life he could have had with an old girlfriend. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Dwight Hurst, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you so much, Your Honor, and the respectable members of the jury, and my honored
You're welcome.
colleague who is here to defend as well. So excited to be here once again. It's a comedy, huh? Well, all right, we'll get into that. But, as I was preparing for this case, I could practically hear Don Cheadle saying to me, "You brought this on yourself," in a quite literal way, since this was my idea. But I was living in a world where I hadn't watched the Family Man for quite a while, and I had made that choice. I had made that choice not to. And next thing I know, I was thrust into a glimpse of what my life would have been like if I had watched it again and did watch it again. A little jarring, a little uncomfortable, perhaps, but I am very comforted by the fact that during this glimpse, I am surrounded by the beautiful company of the Reels of Justice boys, and that I get to be welcomed into the warm bosom of family that is this courtroom. At least until I learn something that I'm supposed to learn, then maybe I'll wake up from it all. And the best thing about it is I don't have to have Jeremy Piven as my best friend. So those are some wonderful, exciting things about this process. I think this is going to be a wonderful experiment, a dangerous experiment, if you will. Schmaltzy nostalgia is sort of the third rail of movies, and people can get quite animated about it. And so as we delve into this is going to be an interesting experiment to see what a jury of this movie's peers think. And as I kind of am looking at this as the defense and I experimenting with this information and seeing what the jury will think. I believe what they'll find is that this film is, in fact, a bad movie. Not because it's bad to the core and not because it's devoid of some little moments of joy and things like that, but it is ineffective and fails at its core mission, which is to make us believe that the alternate reality for Nicolas Cage is the only way that he could be happy, and that was always meant to be there for him, and he is off track of where his life should be. That seems to be the thesis, and I'm going to put forward the case that they failed to meet that. We certainly see some moments of joy. Mumbo jumbo, smacked out of your head. Some of those things are very much there with Nicolas Cage's weird and fun attitude that's brought to this. But overall, I find that there's a lot of lack of fun, and we're gonna get into that and see, if we're gonna choose us, including this movie, or choose us as a group to decide that it's not what it needs to be. So, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Hurst. Like most third rails, I think you should avoid peeing on this movie. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Mr. Big Ben Haslar. Please present your opening statement.
Now that you've
Dwight,
told him he can't
now I
pee.
understand. You hate the family man. Don't give in to that rage. Let love flow for Nick Cage. Vampire's Kiss acquitted. All his films uplifted. Now we will have justice for this great reel. Yes, the family man is admittedly a bit forced. It has plot devices that...
Bravo!
Thank you.
Hand you some roses.
I'm trying to read my notes through my tears.
Yeah, all the plot devices don't exactly add up, but this is not guilty of being a bad movie. It's simply a non-offensive reversal of It's a Wonderful Life, where instead of a man seeing what life is like without him, he gets a glimpse of what lives might be with him and how he would have benefited from that. It stars the always controversial Nicolas Cage, but this is the best version of Nick Cage. It's not Vampire's Kiss Nick Cage. This is like the right amount of craziness interjected into his dramatic side to give the film some levity. And we have the lovely Téa Leoni complementing that performance by becoming the embodiment of wifely support and love as our main character deals with his midlife crisis. The result is a film that might not dethrone the likes of Elf and the pantheon of Christmas classics, but it stands on its own legs enough to become a mix of... You should throw it in every fourth Christmas or so, you know? And while Don Cheadle, I emailed him and he's going to visit Karen Gillan on the set of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and show her what her life might have been like without me. I will endeavor to prove that this is not a guilty film in the meantime.
He should show her what life would be like with you.
I'm sorry. Yes, that's what I meant.
All right,
Yes,
all right. Well, that's okay. You were singing and everything, and don't forget how great the Wicker Man was. We know that. So, but thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Haslar.
I think I think she's gonna turn. I think she's gonna chase you in an airport.
Very possible. Not legal anymore. Post 9/11. Mr. Hurst, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
Thank you so much. And, let me hit it up top that there are some, as I call them, moments of joy. And I will totally go there with you. This is the best of the Cage years, although he's doing some cool things now. And Nicolas Cage is one of those that, in my experience, elevates even a poor movie to a more fun status to watch. And this one does give him a chance to stretch some of his dramatic chops a bit, and at least it attempts to. I think that the non-offensiveness, I'm gonna push on that a little bit as we get into it, and we're gonna talk about what the damages are from this. But my overall argument is that this movie fails to sell us, or to sell me at least, I guess, on the idea that this is a magical, wonderful reality and that this is all you have to do. So and also that this character needs redemption, which is my first point. Is Jack a jerk? Right? Nicolas Cage's character, Jack. We are, I think, meant to understand that he is someone in need of saving and that this is the process of him being saved. If that is the case, there's some flaws in how they built that argument. So I'm going to go through a couple of things that they're trying to say. First of all, he's making his employees work on Christmas, except he's not exactly. His boss is making people work on Christmas. He's working on Christmas. He's even doing some extra bits that he's not requiring them to do of traveling on Christmas Day. Now, is the argument what we're supposed to take from that he doesn't respect Christmas? Well, that doesn't seem to be the point later on. It's not an Ebenezer Scrooge story in that way where he's learning to love Christmas. Is he not respecting other people's families? Well, I don't know about y'all, but I've had some jobs where I had to work on a holiday, and I definitely didn't get to leave at 8:30 p.m. at some of those jobs. We could look at first line emergency care providers. We could look at people who work in any kind of gas station or restaurant or any type of 24/7, people who work in security, people who work in healthcare. You get it. People do have to work at Christmas. So
Elves.
Elves, exactly.
No, they got that day off. They work up until Christmas.
But the big man in red himself works on Christmas. I mean, and he's a pretty good guy. So I think, the result of that one is that he is insensitive-ish, but they fail to show him being super insensitive to his staff, because even when he chides Alan or whatever, he does so in a way that I think matches what you'd teach someone to do in leadership school. So that one was a swing and a miss as far as making him look like a big jerk.
Mr. Haslar, is the film, how does it set up Jack in the beginning? Is he a man who needs saving?
Yeah, I kind of walked into this film thinking along the lines of Dwight. I was thinking he would be like the jerk that makes everyone work on Christmas Eve, but that's not exactly what they're doing. It's more real than that, because he's not completely lost. He just is lacking a glimpse of what his life might have been like if he went in a certain direction. It's not like he's completely unforgivable or unrelatable in his life. He's just striving for something in that, climbing up the corporate ladder sort of mentality, which in the end won't give him much comfort. So that's what changes for him. If he were like cartoonishly Ebenezer Scrooge-ish at the time, it wouldn't be quite as real as it becomes. Like, he even says later on in the film that his life with Kate is not worse. It's mostly just different. And he comes to, fit into that life a bit more and seeing how that can fulfill him.
And I will say that's great if that's what they did, and you could argue that, and maybe you will, that is what they did. However, I think they're trying to sell us on the fact that it is. We'll get into that a little bit. One of the things I do object to is this movie's rigidity with life planning. One other thing they do to show us that he is bad is that he is having what appears to be a one-night stand in the beginning, except that it isn't really, because his first, other than saying the thing that no one's ever said outside a movie, which is, "You're a wonderful lover," other than that, which...
Is that what I'm doing wrong?
I say it to Ryan all the time.
How else would they know, counselor?
No. Yeah, so I'm just, I've just never had anyone say it to maybe, I don't know, maybe I've never qualified myself for it. But no, just kidding. But
overruled.
The thing that is very interesting there is if that was a one night stand and we're saying like, oh, here's a guy who is single and is spending the night with someone who, by the way, seemed thrilled to spend the night with him. All by itself, that's very sex negative if we're going to say that that's terrible. I will also add, though, that one of the first things he says to her is, "Let's go out," essentially. "I want to see you again." And she says, "Yeah, maybe." And then she does come to see him. So there is a part of him that is desiring perhaps more time with someone, or at least seeing her again. He's not, we see Tony Stark be a jerk by having Pepper escort someone out, or, that's the sort of traditional Tyler Durden making. Well, I guess he didn't make someone else tell Helen Bonham Carter to leave. That was technically him. But anyway, so that's how you show a jerky sexual interaction, and they chose not to do that. So, yeah, and I guess that goes along with what you were saying, Ben. I guess we're on the same page there.
Yeah, it's along those same lines where, like, if he were like just like cartoonish about it, then that's not exactly what they're going for. The message that they're saying is very unfulfilling. When he's making out with Kate later, he's like, "Oh, you make me so hot, baby," and that's not what she wants. She wants to hear that he loves her. That's the difference between his love styles in these two universes.
Yeah. Yes. Well, one of the things about his character is that we have to look at is what is the great sin that he commits, right? The great thing that makes Don Cheadle say, "Oh, okay, I got something for you." It is that he is content. He has worked to a point in his life where he accepts his life. He is fairly kind to others. He puts himself at great risk to try to save everybody in the store. Cheadle seems to be impressed with that. But then as soon as he says, "I'd like to help you," Cheadle gets kind of mad. Now, is he a little douchey about how he tries to help? Is he out of touch? Yeah, but he seems sincere, right? And then Cheadle's character, what is it, Cash?
Yes.
That's where Cash turns to him and gets into another one of these problems with this movie, to be honest with you, is that we don't have any reason to believe that this glimpse is anything other than a punishment for being content. Or at least the movie doesn't articulate that at any point. He says to him, "Oh, you're happy the way life is, huh?" Well, you brought this on yourself. And so that's a very interesting choice to make, to punish someone for, "Oh, you're content? Well, I'll show you what could happen otherwise."
Yes, but he thinks he's content. That's the problem. He doesn't know what he could have had otherwise. And I agree. I don't get why John Cheadle's like, you brought this on yourself, Jack. Because it's like, well, what? You're kind of rewarding him for doing something nice in a way to kind of get his life maybe back on track in a way that he didn't think that he needed
Mr.
to be.
Haslar, we are supposed to reward people for doing things that are nice, right?
Right, exactly. So I don't get why Don Cheadle says that. But the point of the glimpse is that he's
nice. Right. Yeah.
Right, yeah, I don't get why he would phrase it that
Mr.
way.
Haslar would say this is a reward he's getting.
Yes, it is. Essentially, it's just not a fun journey necessarily at first because he gets thrown in point blank, not knowing anything about this other world because, I guess, for the sake of comedy. But that is the point, that he did do something good out there. So the forces out there are going to give him a glimpse of, how he could have improved himself because he thinks he's content in this life, but he's really not.
Well, and that's where we have to look and say, yeah, what's going on inside him before he knew that this was an option, right? And that gets into one of the other issues. So let me get into this point here, which is, what is Cash doing? What is this strange angel or whatever he is driving around, stealing cars and testing people's morality? I'm afraid that as I watch it, it comes off as a little preachy, a little rigid to say you absolutely cannot be content because that's not okay. This is not a life plan that we approve of. So therefore, and I think we can see that reinforced in some other ways in the movie that I'll get into, but we're never really, and as a guardian angel, I got to say, when you watch A Wonderful Life, Clarence is being sent to help someone recognize the good things about his life, right? Whereas you watch this and we don't really ever know. Cheadle's character never, ever says anything. In fact, is, I would say, ethically, if you're a being who messes with people's life, you're either malicious or you are helpful, right? And a malicious genie or alien or whatever is going to say, I'm going to do this to fuck with you. Whereas you see Clarence come down and say, well, George, that's my Clarence impression, I'm here to teach you to love
Please
your
proceed.
life. And then, here's Cheadle saying, I'm going to teach you to hate your life, actually. And I'm going to do it as a punishment for you being a little douchey and recommending I go join a program. And for telling me that you like your life how it is, as you're trying to inspire me to put the gun down and not be a person who's going to kill someone over $200. So, yeah, I just think it undermines the message of the movie. I'm not saying that it's obviously a purposeful choice, but if we are to look and say he's truly not content, as the defense, is alleging, we don't ever really have anything other than he's sad to lose access to this wonderful, cool, family, especially the cute little kids. We don't really have any evidence to go off of to say this is a good experience for him. This is saving him. We don't even know that that's the intent of the angel, to be honest with you.
Mr. Haslar, would you like to make a rebuttal? Did Nick Cage seem to be enjoying
Yeah,
his
no,
new
I
life?
I think it is clearly the intent of this angel, because in that scene at the end before he goes back to his real world, it clearly dramatizes both sides of it, because he's in one side, like in the bedroom with this wife who loves him, and then it flips once he's like desperately trying to stay awake, but once he eventually succumbs to sleep, he wakes up in this bedroom that's completely empty, without anything, without any love in it. So it's clear that given that transition happens right then, that was the goal. He's learned his lesson at that point of what he really wanted in life.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing we have to look at, really, right? The thing we have to look at is to say, just because he's sad or the movie says he's sad, have they earned it? Has the movie gotten us to a point where we know why he's sad exactly, other than just he missed this? So let me transition.
Yeah, if you'd like to introduce a new line of argumentation.
Yeah, I think we beat that one up. So let's get into Alter Jack, as I call him, which is the Jack who is strangely replaced in this alternate dimension, so much so that even the daughter, as is done often in these movies, is you not only have the magic angel. In fact, this movie may fall well into the trope of the magic Negro if they're putting Don Cheadle in that role. You know, I don't know.
I'm not touching that one.
The jury's got to, you know, I don't know if the jury will discuss that or not, or if that's a point. It's a normal thing that happens in movies. This is an old movie, whatever. I'm not coming after it for that, but they also do a lot of other tropey.
Objection.
things.
2000's not old. We can't do that to ourselves, Your Honor.
You're in movie
Unfortunately,
years.
kind
Wait,
of
the
is.
jury can object?
No,
I didn't realize we could do that.
That was my Dylan impression, guys. What do you think?
Gonna have
Hey, you
another
know-
juror escort you out of here.
You can do anything you want. It just depends what the judge will do, I guess. You know, but
Not much.
whatever. Hey, but you know what? If that's what you need, then it's okay. So I don't even remember what I was talking about.
That's not
yeah,
good.
alternate Jack in the other dimension. So they do use a lot of tropes. One of which is the kid being like, "You're not really my dad," and that was you know, a nice little exchange, a cute little exchange with him and the kid. But let's look at what was going on in Jack's life before, you know, movie protagonist Jack jumped in and took his place. Well, he's drinking a lot, right? I mean, he's got some liquor hidden in his office, and it's not. It didn't strike me as like the, I don't know, fancy cut glass kind of like, here's my little bar over here that I'm the boss and I'm just not going to hide it. No, it's stuffed over here, and there's a paper cup, and you know, there's some indications there that he is working on starting up an affair with a neighbor. I think we have some evidence there as he comes into the party and she's like, "Check out my dress." And we've been doing this for years. Are we finally going to talk about it? So something's going on there that's not great. Also, he seems to be a fairly poor communicator, except for when something's going well. He does a really good job at throwing a party or singing a song to his wife. But when it really comes down to it, there's a lot of things that they haven't maybe worked out. When he says something about living in the city, what does she say? "Oh, not this again." When he says something about not loving his job, it's like, "Oh, not this again." So there are some issues in Alter Jack's life that go beyond just having Jeremy Piven as a friend, which is not great. I'm going to harp on that. As well, you know, basically this is Jeremy Piven reprising his role from like Grosse Point Blank as the inexplicably along for the ride invested best friend, who's just like, "Hey, whatever you're doing, I am down for it. I am along for the ride." So,
Mr. Haslar,
so just a lot of things there.
What would
about
you have to
Alter
say
Jack.
about the glimpse we see of the Jack who wasn't there?
Yeah, I think that it kind of speaks to the genuinity of the film, because like if one is like a complete fairy tale, that wouldn't really be interesting, would it? But it would be normal too that he would be in any life and have problems. You know, it's unreasonable to assume that he wouldn't be, but it sets up these parallels in the movie that do make sense. Where in one, like his condo doesn't look like a terrible existence, but it focuses, you know, on the suits and the great view. But then when we come to it later, it feels empty. That's a parallel. Jack sings in both his lives, but in one it's like a grandiose sort of selfish way, and in this parallel life he sings out of an expression of love. So it's the same person, but just living his life differently. His life with Kate is very welcoming and forgiving, but he gets crazy, and that, you know, that is normal. That's a normal thing to have in life, and it's honest. And the way that he has, like you said, the whiskey to get through his day and changing diapers, that's not fun. But there's good things that come along with that. And the good towards the end is what starts to outweigh the bad.
Yeah, I know. I can see. I think that's a good point, and they make the point when he comes back to his other life of like, we've had some hard times, but we've stayed together, and that is worth mentioning, and that is something that's good to show. I think I go back though. Some of these things aren't bad decisions intrinsically, but they do attack for no reason other than, I mean, they didn't have to make any of those choices, and they didn't have to emphasize them and leave them just hanging there. But you know, is he there to save Alter Jack just as much? But they don't. Once again, there's a lot of interesting things that could be happening, but they don't really do most of those things. What they do instead is they introduce these things that destabilize the life that we're supposed to think is the life that he wants to be living. that he's supposed to want to live. And as you put it, he's doing a lot of the same things, right? It certainly wasn't
Well,
a
yeah,
selfish
like-
musical number for the audience. It was he singing in his briefs. Just kidding.
Well, the other one that I think like really like sort of epitomizes what these two worlds are like is the suit. He wears them and he says like he feels like a better person just wearing them. You know, like he's a person who's made it. He's a person who's capable of buying most anything he wants. Whereas in this new life, he gets this suit as like a gift of love and appreciation from his wife. So it symbolizes his worth in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Hurst, I'm going to pass it over to you for any final points before we turn over the defense.
Yes, let me go into a little bit of the relationship. I'm going to attack his relationship with his wife. So a lot of the things
Homewrecker.
that they're trying to do. Yeah, I don't know. He was working on that one too. But the a lot of the things that they try to show a couple of things that show that Kate is supportive. She goes and gets the cheap suit for him, the cheaper whatever knockoff brand of the suit because she knows he wants it. She doesn't. She kind of lets things go eventually here and there. All that kind of stuff. But let's go back, to a couple of the underpinnings of the relationship. And once again, this is all under the umbrella of eating away at the earned it ending of this whole thing, eating away at the idea that, oh, this is the dream. Kate's pretty manipulative. I'll be really honest with you. I find her to be pretty manipulative. What does she say to him when he leaves for Christmas morning? She doesn't say, I'm mad at you for leaving. She says, what kind of a man does this? So she tends to go right for the attack of identity of like, you are a kind of man who is a bad kind of man rather than, hey, could you explain this a little better? And I want to listen to anything you have to say. That doesn't ever seem to take place. At least not on screen, which is all we have to go on.
Doesn't her saying like, what kind of man does that? Isn't that a question that gives him a chance to explain himself rather than I'm mad at you, just shut up. What? You're just a terrible person.
Well, to me, that is you're a terrible person. What kind of man are you? Right? I'm going to go ahead and just right away say, what kind of person are you?
It is weird, right? I mean, like the guy just disappears on Christmas morning. I mean, it does merit discussion, does it not?
And
what
even anger.
happened?
Sure. Even anger. But I just think it's the use of the words. And I'll go, there's a couple other examples that it kind of does. So let's look at this I choose us business. One of the problems is the, once again, the rigidity of the movie going back to, hey, I choose us, meaning you need to do what I want you to do. You need to stay here and not leave. There's no other way that we can try to reinforce our relationship through that change. You need to keep the job you have that you don't like. We have to live in this house. I have a law degree, but I'm going to not do anything to support the family, and I'm going to put all that on your shoulders. And by the way, when you say, I went and got this great job, it doubles my salary, I think this warrants a conversation about it. And how would we do this? And I'd like to do this. And by the way, I'm not even supposed to be here and I'm in. I want to support the family in a better way. I'm starting to have these desires. And all of that discussion doesn't happen because she says, if this is what you really need, go ahead and ruin our lives. She says, rip the kids out of the only home that they've known and move away from the woman who wants to sleep. No, she didn't say that part. But so, there's a lot of things that you could say, well, could we have even a discussion, a real discussion other than if you really need to mess up our lives, I guess we can do it. And so I just think it undermines the message. It's not that it doesn't happen. It's not that it's not realistic in some ways, but it undermines the message. And what's the end result is he does the same thing to her. Even if he's about to lose his job, he doesn't say, show up in Paris, right? And say, I'm choosing us. He goes to her and says, you choose us and don't go to Paris and your whole life. By the way, he's about to lose his job anyway. I mean, let's be honest. He's either going to quit or get fired because he didn't show up on the slopes of Aspen for Christmas or whatever the hell.
Very selfish, too.
Right. There's a selfishness attached to that. Is it choosing us to try to force my partner to change their life plan that we've been working on together for years? Is that choosing us? Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you rest there, Dwight, so we can pass it over to Mr. Haslar?
Yeah, sure. That'll work.
All right. Prosecution rests. Mr. Haslar, you may present your first exhibit.
Okay, yeah. I I think the exhibit itself is Nick Cage because he's adorable. His a cappella recognition of LaDonnie Mobile at the beginning in his dressing room, that's proof enough. I think like we should be able to rest there. He's just the perfect amalgam of crazy Nick Cage and dramatic Nick Cage that we all just love, right? And he gets to scratch both of those itches in this film with plenty of great moments. Like, I like how he kind of like gags on the subpar cigars and pastries at his, neighbor's holiday party, or the look on his face when Don Cheadle speeds off in this Ferrari, leaving him holding the bag, or the look of fear on his face when he comes to realize that he works at Big Ed's Tires. This is Nick Cage just selling it. He's completely in this role. You completely buy it in every moment that he's in. And his moments with his daughter, they're very fun. She's a fun little ally for him to have as he sort of navigates this new world in which he's placed, where he gets to be both comedic and dramatic. It's where Nick Cage shines. It's in every scene that he gets to do it both simultaneously, like with her belief that he's an alien, but also he gets to show like real concern when she's scared about where her dad is. He gets to do both in the same scene, and it's Nick Cage at his finest.
Yeah, I will say that Cage is fantastic in this. I think Cage is fantastic anyway. I'll go toe to toe with anybody that he's one of our better actors of this generation, and he illuminates and makes everything a bit more fun. Does he elevate a movie from being bad to being good, or does he take a movie that is bad and makes it watchable? Right? Because I think we could come up with tons of examples. I think just because Cage is awesome doesn't mean this particular movie is good, because there's tons of cases where that's a bad movie, but it's watchable because of Cage. And you're right. The acting in this movie isn't really the problem. It's the undermining of the message and the message itself that kind of reinforces some unhealthy communication. Except for the fact that Kate is kind of aggressively good, but whatever.
Mr. Haslar, tell me a bit about the message of this movie.
I think I scratched most of the message stuff when I was doing my rebuttals with Dwight. It is about what he was missing. He thought he was happy in his life, but there's more that he was missing. But to double on the acting, I think Téa Leoni also does a great job. I might agree with the manipulated points that Dwight Hurst brought up, although I think that's more because if you were to structure it where they're like having a conversation about like, oh, well, should we take this job? Should we not take this job? Like it kind of would be in real life. That would be sort of boring. So they kind of have to take some script writing shortcuts to get it into like these, dramatic scenes at the airport and that sort of thing going on. So in my mind, I think that's forgivable. But Téa Leoni does a great job of being like this embodiment of family love. She looks at Jack with both absolute frustration and unconditional love in almost every scene she's in, like every single one. But it's most pronounced in her description of what family life means to her, and that Jack has to use that later on when their roles are reversed, when he's like pulled out of the glimpse and is trying to get her to stay with him. So I think that the acting on both of these parts are fantastic. I think the message works enough because life is not going to be perfect either way, but it is better with people that you love in it, as opposed to climbing up the company ladder in a Bostonian peace of mind sort of way. And on that, the defense will rest.
Oh, wow. Very
Bostonian peace of mind.
Do I get to say anything of that last part?
Sure,
Or
you
I
can rebut to that.
Nicolas?
You can rebut to that now.
I think that whether or not they cross the threshold of backing up this point is really the point the jury's going to have to decide upon. But do they reinforce that? Well, I mean, let me just first, I'll hit most of that in closing, but let me just say that the way that they show these two relating to each other could have been fixed by a line here or there. It could have been fixed by, why don't they focus on, well, I like our life and here's why, instead of the more heavy manipulative stuff. But they didn't do that. Is it like, oh, this could have happened? There's a lot of coulda, shouldas that didn't happen in this movie that would have been one line here or there that actually makes it work. But it, came within a short distance. Savable, but not saved.
All right. Well, both sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Hurst, you may proceed.
Well, I'll just tell you my the biggest issue with this movie that I keep coming back to is, what is the lesson? What are we to take from this? Well, we're supposed to just take, I don't know. Is it that he's supposed to be with Kate? Maybe. I think I've laid out some of the reasons I think that's a little problematic based off of it. Is he supposed to have kids? Well, maybe. But one of the things that's hard is that there's a lot of weight placed on the very small shoulders of these children. As far as I can tell, those are the moments that made me tear up with the kids. And I'll admit that. But when I look at that and say, why did I tear up? Well, it reminds me of the motivational speaker that maybe your workplace calls in at some celebration of excellence party that gets up and says, hey, everybody, this is great. Makes a few corny jokes and then gets down and you're like, wow, what really happened? I mean, they were very excited. It felt exciting while they were talking, but they didn't say anything. There's nothing of any substance. There's no action items that are in there. I think that this movie, not only it fails its message and it flirts with the using just basically some nostalgia and regret porn almost that it pulls in. It successfully elicits some of those emotions at times. But I just think when I look at it after or even before the movie's over, I'm like, well, what is really happening here? I just don't get it. What is Cheadle up to? What are we supposed to take from this? So if we're missing an action item, I'm going to give one to the jury, which is choose together, the togetherness that you can vibe on for this movie, and find it guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. All porn is regret porn if you're sexually repressed enough. Mr. Haslar, you may proceed with your closing arguments.
Sorry. I was just reading an email I got from Don Cheadle here. Sorry, Mr. Haslar. Did everything I could, but Karen spent her entire time in the glimpse screaming in terror about how horrible her life is. Went to Empire State Building in fit of despair. Said her only solace was knowing that she was going to a place her husband could not follow. Had to pull her out of glimpse early. Well, that's not what you want to hear. I guess I'll have to refocus my dreams a bit. Well, anyway, I guess in conclusion, la 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 means this film's not guilty. In short, it's sweet. It has Nick Cage belting out La Donna Immobile. That alone warrants the not guilty verdict. And its message that any man's life would be better with Téa Leoni in it is hard to argue with. Just ask David Duchovny. Don't screw up your verdict with this because you're a little unsure of who you are. Thank you.
Don't ask him now.
Thank you,
Maybe
Mr.
go back
Haslar.
in time and ask him.
It could have used a little more.
That was when he knows.
It could have used a little more singing. Thank you, both members of the jury, Mr. Maynard Bangs, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, and Mr. You're not really my dad, are you? Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
I think my father was a better family man than Nick Cage. He had two of them.
Classic bailiff. Oh, right. God, two very good cases. You know, this is the kind of conversation like I really hope we have on this show, you know, when we do, because I was thinking like Family Man, what are we going to talk about there? And then Dwight just brings in all this info about what's the message. Are they being manipulative? Does Nicolas Cage deserve this? Is he being punished? Is he being rewarded? You know, so I think that's a question that we might have to grapple with in the jury. Ryan, what did you think of the cases in the movie?
In terms of the movie, it's not terrible, but it's not particularly inspiring. Like, there's nothing really about it that makes me say, oh yeah, that was a good movie, but nothing about it that I really sit there and go, oh, this was terrible. It really, it hits the middle distance for me. Whereas both cases, I think, were quite well argued. Even when I didn't necessarily agree with either side, which was most of the time because I'm just so very much down the middle on this. There are very interesting questions to raise in regarding what the message of the film is, which I wasn't necessarily sold on or necessarily hip to. So I'm stuck right in the middle.
Very interesting. How about you, Maynard? How are you feeling about the case?
I do think there are strengths to this movie. I think, as the defense raised. I think the performances are all good. I think especially Tay Leone. Is it T Leone? Tay Leone?
Yeah, Alien.
We'll never know.
I thought her performances were good, and I always think Cage is good. He's he's crazy when he needs to be and when he's not. So I think the acting is good. I think that the muddled message is kind of also a strength and a point, right? Like the prosecution says, I just don't think it's a flaw. Jack's life isn't bad before. He's not unhappy, but that's because he didn't know what he didn't have. And that's, I think, is what Cheadle means by I'm going to enjoy this, because you think you're content, but you don't know how content you could be. And that's a genie I can't ever put back in the bottle once I show you. And so I do think that it's a reward, right? That he earns, right? He didn't have to stand up in the store. He didn't have to even try to. It's clumsily done, but he is trying to help Cheadle after that. And I think he had to like cross all those X's to like earn this glimpse, which I think is seen by whatever forces control it as a second chance, a second opportunity to understand more of what he's left behind. It's possible that if he never had this glimpse, he dies, content and everything. But after he sees what his life is when it's dedicated to the less material things, that he kind of finds himself a little bit more. So
yeah, it encourages him to pursue real love now. Like it changes,
and it's not
his
a fairy
mindset.
tale
Yeah.
love. I agree with Dwight's points. Tay Leone's character can be manipulative. Well, guess what? So are people, but it doesn't mean that they don't love each other, and it doesn't mean that the relationship's that bad. It's just that sometimes people are manipulative to each other.
Yeah, and
even
Big
the people
Ben
they care
conceded that. He's like, if the whole glimpse was just a pure fairy tale, the movie's not very interesting at all.
I'd call that more flat. Yeah,
it would be. So it does give it some dimension and some realism, which is kind of funny when you're talking about a movie where angels are sending you to alternate.
Maybe he's an angel.
I like that he need to be a jerk for it to work, and I like that it's not the ideal life.
Yeah,
that it's just the alternate.
It's different.
Life. That's it.
Which is what he says in the movie too. He goes, "No, it's just different. It's
not the greatest way of living, but it's not terrible."
I think the movie would say that this doesn't have to be what would make all of us happy, but it may be what makes Jack specifically happier. Yeah. That being the family man is ended up being something more important to him.
Yeah. And it's very interesting to think about. Well, and I think this is a good point Dwight made for the end of the movie, and I do think this is where it gets a bit weak, where he says, "Choose us or stay with me." So kind of flipping the manipulation around, and she does stay behind for the coffee. And I just don't see a universe where she doesn't end up going to Paris. Like I just don't see them staying together. So at the end of the movie, it does feel like I kind of wish they ended it in a way where he was pursuing love now, possibly with the first girl he met. Now that like Tia Leone is off the table now, because I just feel like her piece is off the board at that point in their life.
Well, he could try, but
he did. That's what I'm saying. So it would have been. I feel like we could have gotten better closure from it, but
I like that there isn't closure. I like that. I like the uncertainty of it.
They're only getting they're only getting coffee.
Wrinkle.
Yeah, they're only getting coffee.
Most movies would double down on it, and they would say, "Oh no, this is a happy ending. This is how it's supposed to be." But I think that where the movie succeeds is that it isn't that pat.
The point
isn't that easy to narrow down.
When he comes back from the glimpse, he doesn't go back to point one, the first point where he doesn't go on the plane to London. He doesn't get the life he's going to get in the glimpse, right? They can't go back in time. So they can't have those kids. Probably the father already had a heart attack and could be dead. So he's not going to be a tire salesman. Like he might be able to still make it to Aspen later, or he's so slick he might be able to smooth everything over and keep his high-powered job, and they can still live in the city together. So this is some third timeline that is starting. Will it be as happy as the glimpse? We don't know. That's something that the film
and that's what I like. I like that uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it is pretty interesting. Should we start locking in some votes?
Sure, I'll go on record first. I don't tend to think of this like romantic comedies as the kind of movie I like, but I like magical realism type things, and so I liked that element that they can go back and play with the past. So I think that's interesting. The concept hooked me. I thought the performances were good. I don't know that all the relationship choices are maybe the healthiest at times, but I do think that also leans into realism. And I can see myself watching it again, especially as a holiday movie. Kind of makes you feel warm and fuzzy. So I'm going to go not guilty.
All right. Ryan Luis Rodriguez.
I gotta say, I was worried when I found out that we were going to do this movie because I had never seen it, and it's a Brett Ratner movie, and that instantly means death to me. Like that
Even Rush Hour?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rush Hour and Rush Hour 2, I think, are his only two halfway decent movies. But I was very, very trepidatious when it came to doing this movie, and about 15 minutes in, I was like, this is pleasant. There's really nothing terribly wrong with this. So I gotta say, I mean, not a bad movie. I wouldn't really call it a good movie, but I don't think it tips enough into bad to be considered bad. So I will go ahead and lock it in. Not guilty.
All right. And I'd just like to say that I really like everything Dwight brought to the table and had to say. And I think watching the movie again, keeping some of the arguments he had in mind, actually probably makes the movie a lot more interesting to watch. So I'm also going not guilty. So that's a unanimous verdict. And but it was a very good case and very good conversation.
So Dwight's prosecution made you enjoy the movie more.
I think it might actually. I'm sorry. Shit. I know. No, it was some interesting points. But anyway, let's get out there and tell that very handsome judge.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of the people versus the family man, we find the defendant not guilty of being a bad movie.
People booing
Should all acquaintance be
Where were all those boos in the jury room?
It's a big crowd.
The verdict is so rendered, I hereby decree that the family man is free to return to its life of decadent excess and model fucking until such time that those two things somehow become tiresome. Court is adjourned.
Did you watch the movie?
This is Mumbly Mumberson reporting to you from outside the Reels of Justice. Dwight Hurst, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict, you big old knucklehead?
Well, we had a lot of surprises, but we were able to stay together on it. That was the most important thing that was there. I'll be honest, I thought that we would grow old together in this courtroom, all of us believing this was a bad movie. But hey, if a not guilty verdict is what the court needs, go ahead and tell people this movie's good.
Thank you, that sounded passive-aggressive. And here comes Big Ben Haslar. Excuse me, can we get a stupid word on how you feel about today's verdict?
Sure, Mumbly. Long-term listeners of this courtroom will know that Dwight has beat me twice. But I won this one, and it's the last one. And people only remember your last fight, so I'm calling it now. I'm the winner. I'm not going to fight him again. We're done. He can fight Dylan as much as he wants. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Justice was served today.
Thank you very much, you big egotist. That's all we have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis. I'm going to go get loaded.
Good old Mumbly.
Yep, these get New Year's
a whiskey,
loaded.
Bottle in the drawer.
Yeah, he was wearing a little.
I was looking for it that whole time. Okay, now
little top hat.
Look.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't consider that Nick Cage is. I mean, that he had a drinking problem. I mean, he keeps some scotch around. I mean, doesn't everybody?
Yes, we do. We all
right.
Do.
Wow, what a real party! Mumbly is with us.
Hours, that's a
trial
drinking
analysis.
It is.
Yeah, we all drink at the job first thing in the morning. to cope with
Oh
the
yeah,
game.
right. Out of
That's what
out
I'm
of the
doing
paper
wrong.
cup.
I
I'm doing
knew,
it right
and-
now. Glug, glug, glug.
We all
glug.
down 3 shots at the beginning of every neighborhood party.
I mean, of
God
course
damn
we
right we do.
don't. Well, wait a minute, but that we didn't see Alter Jack do that. We only saw New Jack do that, and we all
I
know the
wonder if,
crimes of New Jack.
Nobody said anything. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah.
I wonder if Alter Jack got to be a rich guy for a couple weeks.
And
You know what?
Ryan, you don't like
That'd be
Red
interesting. That'd be
Dragon?
interesting.
I do not. That is
What?
correct.
I like Red Dragon. What the hell? It's probably his best movie.
Are you like Googling Brett Ratner movies?
Well, I did have to because I don't know a lot of these others, but yeah.
Rush
I
Hour
will
was the
say,
low hanging.
He doesn't have a large body of work, though,
Oh
does
man,
he?
Tower Heist. Everybody loves Tower Heist, right? Yeah, what a masterpiece.
Red
Of course,
Dragon.
X-Men.
No, you
Dwight,
think of Manhunter. That's the good one.
Red Dragon's fun. So Dwight, what have you been up to lately? What's been keeping you busy?
Well, first of all, this was a lot of fun. I knew that this was a hard sell, but it's a weird personal thing I have with it, I guess. But it was a lot of fun. I appreciated
Well,
the discussion.
I agree with a lot of your points. I think I do come down with Ryan. I'm mixed on it. It's not bad, but it's not good either.
It's 2.5.
sort of just
It's
there.
a 2.5.
knew-
It's a gentleman's 2.5.
As I was
Tay
watching
Leone
it,
takes it to 3.
as I was watching it again, I was like, this is a lot more sweet than I remembered. Damn it. But I knew that was going to be the problem. So, I don't know. What have I been up to? I've been doing a lot of recording over on my podcast, The Broken Brain, which is about culture and psychology. And we've been doing a lot of, just did a release on Wakanda Forever. And I'm doing some of the holiday winter recordings right now. So those should be coming out soon. I have a little tradition of re-releasing a lot of the Christmas episodes each year in the week leading up to the new 1 or 2 episodes that we're doing this month. So
Oh, you regift them.
Oh, that's fun.
exactly. Yeah. Re-gift.
Well,
with the
everyone's
same
driving around. They need to queue up the podcast on the player. So right after Reels of Justice, you got a lot of Broken Brain to go through. It all
thing.
makes
That's
sense.
right. I mean, what do they need? More than
No, we
7
know
or
you
8
listen to
hours
Dwight
of me.
first.
Yeah, I have heard you've had a very interesting guest recently. I'm talking about Schlenzo.
Yes. That's what I was. I thought you were going to make a punchline about it, but yes,
I am the punchline.
Dylan-
Yeah.
Dylan came on the show to rap with me about internal family systems, which is a mode of therapy that's really gaining a lot of popularity because it's quite useful, and we both have had experiences with it, and we're able to talk about that. It was it was a lot of fun, and really really insightful.
It was a blast recording. I think everyone should, as soon as this episode's over, go put that one on. You will not
in
regret
IFS therapy. No,
Yes.
I thought that's.
And
What
I
you
thought
were
my
gonna
brain
say.
was more broken.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Insightful Schlenzo. Why isn't he ever like that on this show?
Save my A material for good guest spots.
See, there you go. Have Dylan on your show. He's a lot better than he is on ours.
Oh, wow.
Well, we're gonna enter into some infighting family therapy or whatever you said. The whole podcast will join.
That's
into
not
it.
what that means. If you listen to the show, you would know that.
We're gonna now. I got to have Maynard on to talk about infighting based therapy. This is gonna be great.
Yeah, I could do
Very
that.
The pioneer.
I tune in for that one.
Like I know how to fight in cages, in pits, in boiler rooms. A lot of experience. Exactly. So Dwight, we always ask for recommendations from our guests for movies that you think people should see. So we're going to ask you for a movie you think people should see, but also, since it's kind of New Year's Eve, we're going to ask you for a New Year's resolution too. So what is your recommendation / resolution?
Well, let's see. The recommendation, I wanted to make a recommendation that ties in with this, that has to do with an alternate reality option, that has to do with, and I was racking my brains to see there's a couple of obvious choices. And so I hope that everybody will forgive me for going with probably the most obvious choice, Dark City.
Nice. Great movie.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It has 100% more Rufus Sewell and Jennifer Connelly than this movie. Unfortunately, 100% less Nicolas Cage, but also 100% less Jeremy Piven. So, there's a lot of things. Also, a very, very unusual for him performance by Kiefer Sutherland, but it's essentially a kind of post-apocalyptic. That's part of the mystery is where is this strange city that they're in? It's a city that it's almost like if you took the Matrix and ended the first or second act when he finds out what the Matrix is, but you put that in the first 10 seconds of the movie. And then you go on from there. It's been compared with the Matrix quite a bit. It doesn't have quite the heartwarming moments that this movie does, perhaps, but it is, in my opinion, more fun to watch. If you were interested in the daughter's theories about aliens coming and messing with us, which is what I believe Don Cheadle's character is, but if you're interested in exploring more of that, the why is something getting mixed around. This is that kind of a movie, sci-fi kind of thing, and dark and fun.
I actually was thinking of rather than an angel, if they were some sort of like Matrix like reality sculptor. That was something I had thought, but it
Maybe
seems
he produces more battery power if he's in a family unit.
Well, that baby face that they make out of squids in the last Matrix movie, that's what this is all about. That's the hidden mythology behind the family man, is a squid baby.
Did anybody see the last Matrix movie? No, didn't think so.
Crickets.
Exactly.
Wow.
No one saw it.
Did anyone see it? Yeah, I've seen it.
No, you haven't, Ben. You just think you have. Some memory was implanted in your brain.
And by the last one, you're talking about the one on HBO Max?
No,
I didn't see that one either. We're talking
There's
about
no
the real
there
last
is no.
one.
There's no HBO Max. What are you talking about?
Yes, it's all in your
It's a glitch in the Matrix.
Dwight, what's your resolution?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. I don't really love resolutions. I try to do, I try to go with this thing that I learned about a couple of years ago, which is you pick a word to typify what you'd like to get out of the upcoming year. So a couple of years ago, my word was engage, because I was kind of avoiding a bunch of things and just kind of half-assing some things, I thought. So it was engage with things, engage with Zorp or whatever. And so yeah, that's a little Easter egg joke there for all the Parks and Rec fans out there. So, I think picking a word, and I will be honest, I haven't picked one for this upcoming year. So I'm open to suggestions.
Oozle-wazzle?
That's two words.
Yeah.
I don't know how to apply
Smegma.
that one. I'm gonna have
That's
to
a
try.
word. Smegma.
We actually use that a lot.
That's a little Easter egg for you Red Dwarf fans out there. What am I talking about? This is a podcast. Everybody's a Red Dwarf fan. So, no, but I'm kind of developing that. So it's the process I try to go through myself as I look and say, what do I feel like I either haven't been doing or would like to do more? And then I'm going to narrow it down to one word that if I lived by that, I would probably do it. So, spoiler alert, I don't have the word yet for this upcoming year, but I'm going through that process right now.
Intensity.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Exact. Good choice, right? Big Bun, you were victorious today. So what is your recommendation / resolution?
I'm going to recommend a movie that's, I don't know if it's my favorite Nick Cage movie, but it's at least top 5, and that's National Treasure, which I was surprised to see how low people's perception of this film is, because I will fully admit I'm a sucker for archaeology adventure films, and a lot of the scenes in this film, if you stop to think about them for a second and start asking questions if this or that could really happen, a lot of it will start falling apart. But the good far outweighs the nitpicks for me. I love how it broke a treasure hunt story that takes place in the US, given that we're quite a bit younger than other countries out there, and that it uses real life locations and ideals established by the founding fathers. The action pieces are never boring, and the high sequence showing how the different approaches the good guys and bad guys take to steal the Declaration of Independence is just plain fun. And minor spoilers, it's a Sean Bean film where you don't have to watch him die. And I have fun every time watching this movie.
What a fun movie. What a super fun movie.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and like I was surprised, like the reviews are kind of mixed on it. Like 3.5 tops, and I don't know, for me I think it's a 4.
Yeah, people really dislike that movie. Actually, it's for some reason I've never seen it, so I don't know. I just know it's
the sequel. I get the sequel has problems.
I imagine no one's brave enough to prosecute it on the show.
Go on, bring it.
Challenge.
And my word will be Gojira, because I want to watch a whole lot more Japanese films this year and pick up more of the language.
all right. No, good recommendation. So I was the judge today, and
Quite
so
judgy.
I thought I was pretty judgmental. Actually, I was. The two were so good, I just kind of let them go head to head. So my recommendation this week, the final recommendation of the year, is apt as it may be a possible candidate for Best Picture this Oscar season, as it's easily one of the best films of the year and possibly of all time, and that's Weird, the Al Yankovic story from 2022. A searing send-up of the biopic genre, this completely true-to-life biography of comedian Weird Al demonstrates how important out-of-the-box casting can be. Daniel Radcliffe does a pitch-perfect rendition of this alternate universe Yankovic. Rainn Wilson delivers a dead-on Dr. Demento, if Dr. Demento were as tall as normal people. And Evan Rachel Wood's Madonna costuming should be up for an award itself. And the surprise guests steal whatever is left of the show, as they'll have you pulling up IMDb and rewatching several scenes to catch all the cameos. Pro tip, keep an eye out for our boy Jonah Ray within the first 10 minutes. Everything about the humor of this movie lands, but it's still family friendly. So if you're looking for something to put on while you cozy around the fireplace this holiday season, Weird Al, the Al Yankovic story, is currently streaming on the Roku channel, which is relatively pain-free and apparently cost-free to sign up for. So you have no excuse to miss the movie of the year. And my resolution, kind of similar to words, I am going to swear less.
Hell yeah.
Fuck right.
God damn.
Just one word less, right? You counted them.
Yeah, well, it hasn't started yet. So I got to get it all in my fucking system now.
Yeah. Shit, Ben. Shit. Jesus.
As long as no one's listening to this podcast late, we should be fine. Then look at January 2nd.
Was it
Schlenzo?
the family friendly nature of the Weird Al movie that made you want to swear less?
No, probably make me want to swear more. But Schlenzo, what is your resolution recommendation combo?
All right, so I'm recommending another movie that popped into my head while we were watching this one, and that is 2009's The Time Traveler's Wife. Much like today's movie, The Time Traveler's Wife gives us strange glimpses of a relationship that is thoroughly complicated by, time travel. Both protagonists have to navigate knowing some things about their future and being surprised by other events that occur. This movie really lands because it is still a solid romance and does not let itself get bogged down in the particulars of the time travel. The man simply vanishes and appears randomly through time. I'm not one for sappy movies typically, but do not be surprised if there's a tear in your eye as this one moves along. And for my resolution, I'm going to continue my strength training goals, and my ultimate goal for this year is going to be to overhead press 225 pounds for 5 reps. I'm well on my way, and hopefully we'll have that before March, and then I'll move on to some different word.
All right.
Your word could be
It probably will be.
That's great. Right guy, why don't you send us on home?
This week's case is about Brett Ratner trying his hardest to approximate Frank Capra. So my rare on-topic Trecommendation this week is Capra's own It's a Wonderful Life. Capra took a lot of shit for his strong sentimental streak. His critics would often call his films Capricorn. But this film is tempered with a real dark streak that enhances the pathos and ultimate catharsis. It's often a bummer, but it's a Christmas classic for a reason, and you could do worse with your holiday time. It's a Wonderful Life is currently streaming on Amazon Prime, but you should pick up the 4K Blu-ray because it looks amazing and it helps keep physical media alive. And my resolution this year is to love Cate Blanchett even more.
Impossible.
How? You literally invented a whole
I
new
didn't say it
month
was
for
an
her.
achievable goal, but I'm going to try.
And also you could watch Riff Tracks riffing of most of It's a Wonderful Life.
great.
Yeah,
cast, by the way.
minus
Great movie.
the 20 minutes that are not public domain. That is true.
Yeah, for whatever reason, why some of it isn't public domain, I don't know, but they do all the good parts anyway. It's all the pre stuff and the miserable stuff. So it's still pretty good. And with that, that's our last show of this year. Are you guys gonna miss 2022?
No.
Dwight?
It was an okay year for movies. Other than that, I don't know. It's all right.
Look
I
ahead,
know it was a
look
pretty
ahead,
good year
never
for
back.
movies.
I like looking back. Yeah, that's where people sneak up on you. But with that, we're all at a show, but we want to thank our guest, Dwight Hurst, for joining us. Thank you so much, Dwight.
Ball, as always. Super fun. Thank you so much.
Fuck yes. And we hope everyone else, we hope you'll join us again soon as well. And we hope our listeners will too, as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Work booze.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.